reason waiting.
We're in Sacramento at the Radisson Hotel. This is the 2009 HomeSchool Association of California Conference. Our theme this year is Finding Our Balance. We have homeschoolers from all over the state that come. Some are unschoolers, some are religious homeschoolers, some are brand new homeschoolers, some are going to do it by the book, and some are going to write their own book someday about how they did it. We welcome everyone here. I'm so happy to be here. I do really wish that everyone who is considering homeschooling could come to the conference, even for an afternoon, to see the diversity. When we first decided that we were going to homeschool, I didn't think we could homeschool because we lived in the city. And I thought only country people could homeschool, and we didn't own goats. And the books that I read, you know, they had goats in them. So there's this amazing diversity, and our conference, I think, really has a beautiful cross-section of different methods of homeschooling, different backgrounds of families. And then when you come to the conference and you see the compassion that these parents have for their children when they're interacting, I love to watch the families interact. It's so moving. Even if you weren't homeschooling, it's the most refreshing and rewarding thing to just watch these families come together. And then, see, I'm more about, that's what appeals to me. But then you get all these workshops on top of it where we don't teach you how to homeschool, but we introduce you to different ways to present math. We talk about homeschooling your special needs children. We talk about beginning homeschooling and learning to trust yourself. Then we get to do all these great hands-on workshops. There'll be tea parties, there'll be ballet workshops, there'll be felted dolls. It is like taking the best of an entire year of schooling, any kind of schooling, and packing it into 3 days. You leave absolutely wrung out, exhausted, elated, and uplifted. It's the best thing ever. Everyone who's going to homeschool should go to one conference somewhere, at least. You couldn't not be sold on it after spending a weekend in this environment.
I'm here because my daughter and her family she is homeschooling them. She has 3 children. My oldest one is 13, the next one is 11, and the little boy is going soon to be 6. She and her husband went through public school, went through college. They both have master's degrees. They're productive, healthy, good people. They have chosen to homeschool, and I don't quite understand the reasoning. While they've tried to explain, and we've discussed it a time or two, I am not interfering in it, but they know somewhat my feelings. And I was thrilled when my daughter invited me to come to this conference, because I thought, great, I'm going to see other people, other children, why, how, when, all of that, and I'm hoping I'll be able to take something more positive away than maybe what my feeling is about homeschooling right now.
So I have a 5-year-old who's going to turn 6 in November, and I have a 3-year-old, and I have a 1-year-old, so I have 3 kids. And we haven't homeschooled yet, we're about to start. My oldest went through kindergarten, and we saw some things that we didn't like. Before kindergarten, she was really into learning and was excited about math and all this stuff. And after kindergarten, she was scared of math. We went on a first grade trip, you know, a tour of the first grade, and she saw numbers and she like freaked out. She was like, "Oh, there's gonna be math here," you know. I was like, why are you scared of math? You know, you're just in kindergarten. And then we started. We've been talking about homeschooling, and then we started researching it more. We read some of John Holt's stuff and John Taylor Gatto's stuff, and we're like, wow. And meeting people, it's a movement it's growing. So there's a lot of pioneers in the past who paved the way, but there's a big movement now where there's all this network that they created, and it seems like we're still learning. We're like, scared too, because you don't know what you're doing, and we're not homeschooled. We're part of the system, so it's you can't relate to it, But it feels right. Something resonates with homeschooling with us and learning that seems true. And I feel like, after school, after being schooled, that I had to relearn how to learn myself. And so I was like, wow, why did I have to wait this whole time to learn the stuff I really, really like?
I've been homeschooling since I was a little kid. I've never been to public school in my life. And when I first started, I was in a bus traveling around California, Arizona, Nevada, Washington, Oregon. And I was taught by my father, who had a bunch of books, and he's a hippie. He went to like a bunch of Renaissance fairs and all that sort of stuff. So I was pretty much learning English and math from him, and then just social skills, bartering skills, and all that sort of thing. And ever since that's ended in my life, I've been doing charter school, which has also taught me a lot of direction of where I want to go. And I'm starting to go to college full-time now in about a few weeks. And I think that homeschooling has taught me a lot of really important street skills.
I live in San Francisco, and my husband, Mike Boss, and I have 2 kids, Jesse, who's 13, and Isaac, who's 9. And from the time my daughter was really small, we knew we wanted to homeschool because we were not excited about the public school options that we were facing. But then after we started looking into homeschooling, we realized it was really a good fit for our family philosophically. And shortly after finding out about homeschooling, we discovered unschooling. And we're able to pretty quickly immerse ourselves in the philosophy of unschooling by doing a lot of reading online and talking with other people. And our kids have always unschooled, never been to school. They do some enrichment classes, that kind of thing, but they've never set foot in a real classroom or school.
We have not always homeschooled. I was a classroom teacher for a long time and an administrator in public and private school, and never thought I would homeschool in a million years, really. And then I had a child who just didn't fit well into the mainstream institution of education. Harry? So after a really, really bad 5th grade year, we pulled him out and started homeschooling, because in Sebastopol, homeschooling's a very normal and common option. And so it seemed like something we should try, and we've never looked back. It's changed our lives.
Our family is a little unique in that we started our homeschool adventure motivated by our desire to go into the mission field. Our family is all believers, and we went down to Mexico for 2 years and worked with an organization that helped build houses for the Mexican poor and introduced families that. And because of our back and forth across the border, homeschooling was a logical choice for that, as it is for many missionaries. After we returned from Mexico, we went back into Christian camping, which I've been working in for 16 years. Our children asked if they could continue to be homeschooled. They enjoyed it so much, the flexibility of it, being able to travel and still continue the education. And my wife discovered a really talent for homeschooling, even though prior to that, she had a really negative attitude just because of her experience of going through school and knowing that she never wanted to be a teacher. But it was a really pleasant surprise that the experience and the type of children we have, that they really enjoyed homeschooling.
Well, homeschooling really never entered my mind, and we pictured our son going through Waldorf school all the way through high school. And it didn't work out that way. There were reasons why we wanted to change to a different kind of educational format, and then that didn't work out for the 1st grade. He wasn't happy, I wasn't happy, and I was standing in front of the sink one night doing dishes, and it all of a sudden occurred to me that if we homeschooled, we could do anything we wanted whenever we wanted. We could go anywhere we wanted. He wouldn't be sitting around making construction paper pilgrim hats for Thanksgiving. We could go to Plymouth Rock. We could go anywhere. We could the world could be our classroom. It was as if there were explosions going on in my head. And in the morning, I rolled over and told my husband we were going to homeschool.
I started out from preschool to about the 7th grade in Baptist private schools. And it turns out that didn't work very well for me. So I went on to public schools over in Marin County, and that didn't work very well either. The kids, they weren't very, fun to be around. Like, all these kids are they're very insecure with themselves. I don't think a lot of them enjoy being in school because they're forced to do so many different things. And my mom had the idea when I was 15, a sophomore, to join the homeschooling gig. And it turned out to be absolutely the best decision I've ever made in my life. It's just everything I was doing in my life that was wrong completely turned around, and now I'm in a better place than I would have been anyway if I had stuck with private schooling or public schooling.
The teacher said, we just don't know what to do with her next year. They'd already moved her up to a 2 grades higher classroom for language arts every day, and she was still having a lot of meltdowns and having a lot of trouble emotionally and just getting along with other kids. They were at a loss. They had tested her, they had done all kinds of things. They were great, they worked their hardest to try to accommodate her, and this wonderful teacher looked me in the eye and said, have you considered private school? So we did, and we couldn't possibly have afforded private school for all 3 kids, but as I was looking for private schools, I discovered homeschooling. And that was in March of Roxana's 2nd year of being in school. And lo and behold, I discovered that there was a homeschool conference happening in our area coming up in a couple of weeks. So just because I wanted to explore all possibilities, I went to this homeschooling conference. I went all by myself. I didn't know anybody. We weren't homeschoolers. And I heard about homeschooling, and I was completely blown away, totally hooked on the vision and the image of what life could be like if we weren't trying to deal with the schools.
I have 2 girls, a 10-and-a-half-year-old and a almost 6-year-old. And we've been homeschooling ever since my 10-year-old was old enough to go to school. And we did it as an experiment. My husband was really interested in homeschooling and I was not. And I thought, okay, we can do this since kindergarten is probably not a big deal. I was worried about ruining her life. So we did it, and I was amazed. I was amazed what she did on her own. And we didn't know what we were doing. I didn't know anything about homeschooling. I didn't even know about curricula. I didn't know about the different approaches. And so we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know how to do it. And so we started unschooling just because we didn't know what we were doing and we didn't know how to do it. And we thought, okay, maybe if we do this, we'll figure out what we're going to do. And we found out that unschooling for us was perfect.
I have been unschooled my entire life. We lived in Madera in California for a couple years, and that's where I went to kindergarten. Then we moved to Sacramento, and the school system was just so overpopulated and out of control that there just wasn't any point in going, and that's why we started homeschooling. And we started with the textbooks and trying to get things going, but it didn't really work that way. So then we started unschooling. There's no structure.
I teach at a private school, private schools throughout the Bay Area, and I'm also a homeschooling dad, 3 kids, 6 and under. And I'm a walking contradiction because I believe in the power of education, but I don't believe in the way we're doing it now. So though I'm choosing to be part of the education process and teach, which is something I was born to do and need to do and have to do, I feel very strongly that we're not doing it right. And one way that I am choosing to live my life and parent is to homeschool my kids. And we're still in the beginning of the process. It's still 6 and under. But where I seem to be able to help and where I want to help is in the field of mathematics. I am a mathematics teacher, and I think most of what we teach in the mathematics classroom is useless, especially especially high school on, especially algebra up. I think it's useless. So because we don't use it in life, and I know I'm going to get a lot of boos for that out there, outside of the homeschooling community, but I think it's useless. We don't need it. If you look to your life as to what kind of mathematics you actually use and need, you don't need it. So the question is, why are we still teaching it? We're still teaching it because in life we need the kind of reasoning that we develop through the teaching of mathematics. So mathematics is just a medium to develop the logical thinking, the analytical thinking, inductive reasoning, the deductive reasoning. So I asked myself over the years, why am I teaching this? For this thinking, so can we do it better? Can we do it differently? So the answer I came up with was to incorporate games, specifically strategy games. I call them brain games, and or one-person thinking puzzles. I mean, for decades, in different countries, they've been using chess and remarking about how wonderfully those countries do in mathematics. You go, I wonder if there's a connection there. Well, yeah, there's a connection. I don't like to use chess specifically because there's a learning curve associated to it. I like games that have no chance, no cards, no dice, and it's all based on abstract strategy, pure strategy. Everything you need to know is right in front of you. And I love to bring a new game to a classroom or to students or to just an individual person because they probably haven't seen it before and they're starting with a raw energy, a raw thinking, and you can just watch them go. You start them with the tic-tac-toe board and you say, okay, let's play tic-tac-toe, and they go like this, like, what do I want to play tic-tac-toe for? I already know how to win or tie, as long as I go first and as long as I get to go here. But then you say, well, what if you play tic-tac-toe, but this time if you get 3 in a row, you lose? And then they stop. And then they start thinking again. And then it's a whole different game. It's a whole different game. There are a myriads of games. There's a ton of games out there that you can play, some that you can reproduce at home for little to no cost, others that you spend a few dollars for that are rich, complex. You'll come back to them time after time after time after time, that have that deep, complex, rich thinking that will develop that logical, analytical part of you that math is trying to do. Decades ago, you saw these old footages in a workout room of people with these big leather medicine balls, tossing and doing deep knee bends and jumping jacks and things like that with that thing around your tummy that shakes you from side to side. We know now that that's may help over the long run, but it's certainly not what is actually needed or what the point is to develop those muscles. And so we've found that there are various machines to isolate those instead of using the medicine balls anymore, or jumping jacks, or deep knee bends, which are terrible for you. Ask my knees, they're awful. So the question is, can we do it in a better way? Well, yeah, they have those isolated machines that work on specific muscles. I'm trying to get these games to develop that particular muscle in your brain so that you can be highly developed analytically, so that you can face any complex problem that's out there in the world, wherever it might be, whatever it might be for you, so that you can be a fully functioning member of the 21st century. And whether or not you know how to solve simultaneous equations or do trigonometric substitution in calculus is completely irrelevant. So inherent in these games is competition. And that's something I try to de-emphasize in the classroom, or I try to de-emphasize at home. It's something that naturally comes up. Sibling rivalry is just inherent. It comes up. So how do you handle it? Well, the overall arching way I like to talk about it through parents and through other kids is to emphasize the good move that was played and to go back in time, take moves back, or to say, oh, do you see that if I put this here, I'm going to win. But I tell you what, instead of my placing that there, let's take your last move back and let's see if we can find a better place for it together so that we can emphasize the good move or the good play or the good thinking and talk about the thinking part. That's the key, is to talk about it, or if you want to be even bolder, to write about it somehow, either to write down why this move was better than that move, or to talk about it. If we instill a competition in our kids, they will take that to being adults. And inherent in competition is one person's going to win and one person's going to lose. And though that might give you an edge in the business world, the cutthroat business world, this world is becoming a much smaller world where we've found that by working together we can accomplish much more than if divided, that we do us versus them. So start at the home, start small, start in school by de-emphasizing competition and emphasizing rather the intellectual part of the pursuit of the game. And that's what I try to do in schools, and I try to do in home too.
So we were going to do a stream walk. We were about 1.5 miles up this creek, and we were going to walk down the creek 1.5 miles to where it came into the ocean. It's a beautiful little creek, and I've walked it lots of times. It's a really fun walk for kids. There's tons of stuff to see and do. And if nothing else, it's a great way just to get some exercise out in nature, you know. So we get into this creek, and there happened to be Pacific tree frogs everywhere. They were just hopping in masses around us. And I'm watching the kids, and they're having a lot of fun. They're dashing into the water, grabbing frogs. And I noticed that this little boy had sort of faded off into the side of the creek bank. And he was just standing there by himself. And one of my counselors walked over to him, and she knelt down beside him and said, "Hey, what you got in your hand?" He says, "I've got a frog in my hand." And she says, "Oh, that's really cool." And she pulls her notepad out of her pocket and her pen and says, "Hey, I'd like to draw a sketch of him because I want to get, when we get back to the van, I want to look him up in the field guide. And I wonder if you could tell me how many toes he has on his back feet. Just like you can see the mental file card started to go. He's like, wait, does he have back feet? You know, and then to realize that he had toes, and you see he got all squinty eyed and he's looking and well, I don't know. I think he's got 3. And she says, well, I really, really check close because I really want to make sure that my sketch is accurate, you know. So she goes through this whole process of discovery of finding the frogs have 5 toes in the front, 4 back, 4 toes in the front, and just where the eye stripe was, and where does it meet? Does it meet right in the nose, or is it above the nose, or below the nose? And does he have any other spots or markings? She makes this whole little sketch. and then it's okay, thanks. And then towards the end of our program, we only got about 100 yards down the creek because of the frogs. Anyway, so we headed back up to the van, and we threw our blanket out on the ground. We brought all our field guides out. Sometimes we catch the kids, sometimes we don't. We're not attached to that. But what I'm attached to is catching the kids' curiosity. So she picks up this field guide and has the little boy there. She says, hey, can you look through this field guide with me? Because I'd like to find that frog. So she flips through. Is that the frog? He says, no, that's not it. That one? No, that's not it. She says, was it that one? No, that's not it. That one? Yeah, that's the one. That's the frog. She says, okay, cool. And so she takes the book and she quarters away from him a little bit and she starts reading through the field guide. And she finishes reading the field guide. She closes and throws it back on the blanket. And he's looking at her and looking at the field guide and looking at her and looking at the field guide. And he says, what did it say? And she said, well, it just, nothing really. No, what did it say? Well, if you ever want to find another frog like that, it kind of tells you where they live and, where their habitat's at and, those kinds of things. I get a call from his mom a week later. She says, I want to talk to you right now. Now, I'm usually a little nervous when I get a parent that says that to me. So okay, come on in. So she comes in and sits down. She goes, what did you do to my son? And I said, well, did we forget to put sunscreen on him? He didn't drink enough water one day. He rolled through poison oak. I don't know. What did I do? She goes, he spontaneously decided he wants to learn how to read. And he's starting to learn how to read in field guides, in Peterson's field guides and Audubon field guides. That's his first reading material.
When I was in kindergarten, friends was definitely always the most important thing. So when we did start homeschooling, my first priority was to find other homeschoolers my age that I could hang out with. And that it took a while. We found a group in Sacramento that had just started a homeschool support group, and we would have park days. We'd go hang out at a park every Tuesday, and we'd have nature walks, and we'd have river days, and we'd have days where we would go and play board games or video games, things like that, and just get together and hang out with all of our friends. And so I would be with at least 10 kids of my own age, like every other day, just doing things together, outside, inside, learning together. For about 2 years, that was the way we did it.
Over the years, we've attended quite a few unschooling conferences around the country, and it was so exciting to be around lots of other unschoolers who really got what we were doing and understood it and were welcoming and felt so inclusive. And so we really wanted to find that for ourselves in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so Pam Toulouse and I got together and we created the San Francisco Bay Unschooling Network about 5 years ago. And we started with a potluck in a park. One evening we had about 25 families show up, and now we have over 300 people on the list. Many of whom we haven't had a chance to meet yet because we're spread out geographically, all the way from, say, Mendocino County down to Santa Cruz County. But we get together on a weekly basis and we have a wonderful time, probably about 35 families that we know on a regular basis. So we have quite a network going of unschoolers, and some of whom are radical unschoolers. And we're just learning and living together.
The thing about socialization is I realized I went to 8th grade for 8 months. I started late in the school year, and I did great. Socialization's not hard. People think that it's going to be hard to transition from homeschooling all of your life to public school because everyone's really different. And that's the thing. It's a lot. I think people, when someone says a homeschooler is more well-rounded than a public schooler, in a way that's true because it's easier to talk to us. Like, we're more comfortable talking to adults. The majority of public school children have been pushed through things by their teachers and parents and figures in their life who tell them what they need to be doing, but homeschoolers have the option to choose what they want to be doing. So talking to adults we don't treat them exactly as equals. Obviously they're wiser in a way, but
more experienced.
Exactly, but it's great because we're not scared of adults. Like, we can talk to them and have normal conversations when most schoolers aren't. I mean, their minds are kind of centered on the new genes at the Hot Topic and who's dating who.
One of the things I enjoyed the most when I was in school was the school I went to encouraged students to teach other students. And that's a piece of what is a part of our homeschooling life now, and we really enjoy that. Harry taught a couple of classes here at the convention, and he did it last year and has done similar things in our area. And it's just really nice to see him follow that. It's a great way to learn a lot of things. It's organization, it's the material, it's wondering what people are going to want to know, and spreading yourself to think about what the right thing to describe to somebody is, how deep, how shallow.
We actually picked up a bit on that in planning this coming school year. We just recently Toby was saying that he wanted to do some science kits that we had lying around. And I realized that as the baby of the family, he hasn't done a lot of the things that the older boys have done. So Harry took it upon himself to look through all of our science books and science materials, and with a stack of Post-it notes chose sort of our science projects for the next however many months, and got very excited, and also gave me reviews like, this book doesn't have anything really valuable in it, or this has some interesting information but not really good projects. And I thought, what a fabulous experience for him as a teenager and a thinker, and also great because he's planning on leading the charge with science, and for his little brother to learn from him is going to be really sweet, and so I'm looking forward to that.
I'm Morgan, and I'm from Sacramento.
I'm Shelby. I'm from Sacramento as well. I'm 14, and I've been homeschooling for the majority of my lifetime.
I'm Sam. I'm from Berkeley, and I'm 15. I've been unschooling my whole life, which unschooling is different than homeschooling because you do everything self-motivated. Your parents don't give you a textbook and say, do this work right now, you know. You can do schoolwork if you want to, but everything you do is self-motivated, and it's based on the theory that you can't force people to learn stuff. Like, for example, you think of what did you learn when you were 15 in high school, and how much of that do you still remember? And you learn a lot more if you learn what you're interested in and do what you love, and yeah,
That's true. Yeah. There's a wider variety of options. In school, it's kind of centered down to the few things that people have chosen for you, and in public school, there's some options like Montessori and Waldorf, which are different and similar to a charter school, which is what a lot of the people who homeschool go through. And I'm starting actually in a couple months. And it's really interesting because they give you the work, they give you options, and you meet with the teacher, which is really great if you want to make sure you're staying on track instead of specifically having your own exact course of study, because a lot of people do choose to do that, which sometimes is hard. Like, personally for me, I can't follow my own schedule. I'll be like, ooh, the computer's right there, and that's just me. So charter school's a lot easier for a lot of people.
Yeah. I'm part of a charter school as well, and I've kind of become an unschooler because my mom really wanted me to have the basic skills, and so she worked with me every day until I could read and write and do basic math, and then she kind of let me go, and that's worked really well because I found things that I'm interested in, and I do what I'm interested in. Like, I play violin and I ride horses, and that's been really awesome, and I've met a lot of people through that. So.
Yeah, a lot of homeschoolers do like the performing arts because it's easier as homeschooling to be into that if you're not having a full school day, to choose to go at different hours than you would if you were actually going to school. So that makes it a lot easier to get into these kind of things. Mm-hmm. Like, I danced for 9 years.
Yeah, I'm going to clear something up about unschooling. It's not that you can't be structured, it's that if you want to be structured, you can be, but you're doing what you want as opposed to being forced to.
I write on homeschooling, I have two daughters, now 22 and 19, both of whom were homeschooled entirely, one of whom is now a graduate student at Princeton, one of whom is at American University studying international development. Our approach to homeschooling was a child-led, family-centered learning. We saw homeschooling as homeschooling for the entire education for the entire family, not just for the kids. There was no time in our lives as a family that we weren't all learning at the same time. And I think I could probably say, I feel we got, as parents, got as much out of it as the kids themselves did during the journey. It was a great way to really be in touch with our kids in this important part of their lives, and we've built strong ties to both them and to our entire community through our homeschooling experience. Our approach to learning assumed that learning actually happens from the inside out. Children are like a coiled spring ready to explode, as we do as both children and as adults throughout our entire life. And so our job really is just to facilitate opportunities for the spring to come forth from within. In some sense, we weren't teachers at all, but rather simply facilitators in our children's journey through their lives.
Every homeschooler kind of has a different life. I grew up, my mom runs the homeless shelter where I live. So I kind of learned about poverty really early on, and I learn best at night because in the morning I can't think worth anything. So I most of the time do my schoolwork between the hours of about 8 o'clock to 10 or 11 o'clock at night, because that's when I think best and I'm most awake. I'm also an auditory learner, and that's something that, in public school you don't really know about. A lot of the time it's a visual thing, but being an auditory learner, being homeschooled, gave me a lot of opportunities that I wouldn't have, because I can listen to music and learn that way, for instance. But yeah, and then I go to work during the day. It's a day in my life.
We really want to encourage the kids to be empowered to make choices for themselves. And I'm really a strong believer in non-coercive learning. And for us, learning is all aspects of life. It's not just about what you do in the classroom. So our lifestyle is that when the kids are tired, the kids sleep. When the kids are hungry, the kids eat. And all of us do that. For me and my husband, we were not homeschooled or unschooled, so we've had a learning curve, so to speak, of deschooling, and so we're learning along with the kids. And so a day could be anything from hanging out at home and immersing ourselves in media to being out all day at a beach tide pooling. So every day is pretty much different. We do have a certain rhythm to the life with certain activities we do with park days and other activities. But we let the kids kind of drive the activities to a large extent by what their interests are, and then we try to facilitate finding ways to meet their needs to do the activities they're interested in.
In school, they don't always teach you exactly what actually happened. Sometimes it's nice to be able to have resources, like to just decide, well, I'm learning about the War of 1812, I'm going to go on the internet and see what research I can do myself and find out more facts than just textbooks can tell you, because there's a huge range of things. And in public school, when they're making you learn something from a textbook, you're not going to want to go on the internet and find out about the War of 1812. It's boring. You're learning about that in school every day. So homeschooling, if you have a subject you're really interested in, a lot of the time you really get to know that subject. You learn as much as you can, and then you learn the things that are important and the actual facts instead of what American history has taught us so far in textbooks over the years.
I'm Jamie Formaster. I'm 17 years old. I'm from Carson City, Nevada. I've been homeschooling basically my entire life.
I'm Grant Markin. I'm 16 from Riverside, California. And I was unschooled my whole life up until I graduated early this year, and I am now attending my local community college full-time.
My name's Wolfram. I was homeschooled my entire life, and I'm currently enrolled in community college and Fresno State, but haven't graduated yet, so I can only take so many classes.
I think that's something that people don't understand sometimes. When you're homeschooled, you get so many opportunities that you wouldn't get otherwise. I want to be an actress. I've always wanted to be an actress my whole entire life. And I never really realized how much homeschooling benefited that, because I got the kind of opportunities that when I was in school I wouldn't get. I'm 17 and I've done 25 shows. So when you have a passion for something and your parents know that you do, and they allow you to expand by giving you the kind of opportunity of being homeschooled, it really changes your life. And I think that's something that people don't understand a lot of the time.
Yeah, like with me, I don't know anybody who has gone to public school for any amount of time who has graduated high school when they were 16. And being able to, because I was in unschool, I got to kind of set my own schedule and learn at my own pace. So I had all my high school work done in time, so my mom just wrote up my transcripts and my diploma, and I was, gone. And I don't think anybody would really have that opportunity if they were in public school, because you have the set curriculum that you have to learn by for amount of time, and then when you're graduated, it's when they say you can graduate. So I totally agree that you have a lot of opportunities homeschooling that you wouldn't have if you were a public schooler.
I just started City College last year. I will be going full-time because I was in high school enrichment, which was really nice to start with just 2 classes rather than just going straight for full-time, because I don't think I'd be able to make that transition as fast. So I'll be going full-time this next fall semester. And I'm also looking at design schools. I want to be a fashion designer or a costume designer. Sounds really fun to me.
We were just homeschooling, and I thought I was going to do a little school at home. And pretty soon I realized that no, that wasn't going to happen either, because he didn't need that. He was just sucking information out of the air. He was learning from neighbors, he was learning from TV, he was learning from just everything around him, and half the time we didn't know where he was learning it from. And one day he walked through the living room and he said something, and I was startled. He mentioned something. I had no idea where he had learned this. And I walked over to a bookshelf and I took this book down off the shelf that I hadn't got around to. It was called I Learned Better by Teaching Myself by Agnes Listico. And I opened it and I practically read the whole thing standing there in the kitchen. And she had had the same experience with her kids, that she was setting up all these learning experiences, and they were just learning in their own way, and they didn't need to have it orchestrated through this little program. And so we just went more and more in that direction. And when he was applying for colleges, that was one of the things he talked about, the value of having been able to think for himself, to follow his own interests, the ability to find out about the things he was interested in. And he wrote this really powerful essay, and he sent out, he was working on 3 applications, his first colleges that he was interested in. Before he got the 3rd one turned in, he had scholarship offers from the first 2. And we did not do a math program, we did not do an English program, he did not have a speller, these little spelling books. We did none of that stuff. We followed our interests. I just kept a rich environment going on. I brought in things that I thought he'd be interested in. He took classes. It was just really a nice smorgasbord.
I'm here to talk about my book, College Without High School, which addresses the question of how to get into a competitive 4-year college or university as a homeschooled or unschooled teenager. Because in my experience working with teens, the biggest problem for parents is how do you make that jump from doing homeschooling in a home environment into the big, nasty world of competitive college. And I wanted to dispel the illusions that it's an impossible jump to make. And so in the book I discuss a number of specific results that you can prove as a homeschooler or unschooler to make sure that colleges see that you are a very cool, very interesting, and very learned person. And I discuss a number of specific adventures you can go on where you have fun and follow your dreams at the same time as doing college prep.
In terms of college admissions, homeschooling is no barrier. If you want to go to an Ivy League college, you just have to do the work.
And it's not even just that. Actually, homeschooling is a great benefit for college, because if you tell them you're homeschooled,
it makes you.
It shows if you talk about it.
People know it's legal, but they don't always know what their options are. I just got an email
yesterday from a woman who said she was on the County Office of Education's website and found no homeschooling information. And I think that they're surprised that they can't go to their schools and get homeschooling information sometimes. And it's not always easy to find. For those of us who are already homeschooling or who have volunteered for years, we know where to find all the information. And it seems so easy to us. But when you're brand new and you're starting out, you punch in Homeschool California, you get our website, luckily. But if you punch in a county, sometimes you'll get the County Office of Education, and they think that all they can do is use that school district's home study program. So we get to tell them about charter schools, about filing for private schools, about satellite schools, about distance learning. So yeah, we get to be kind of the keepers of all that knowledge, and it's fun to share.
Something that I'm seeing more and more today that was not happening when we started homeschooling is that people think about homeschooling and the first thing they want to know about is the methods and styles. They call them the methods and styles. They need to investigate these and figure out which one they're going to be sometimes. I don't know what style I'm going to be. I don't know what method I'm going to use. And they want to buy a curriculum based on this method or this style. It didn't used to be like that. You used to think in terms of, well, you're going to homeschool, your child's going to need to learn how to read, and so you kind of look around and ask around and figure out some good ways of helping him learn how to read. He's going to need to learn some math, so you kind of look around and figure out ways of doing it. A lot of it's just natural. We didn't spend a lot of time on a program. But today people are hooked into this methods and style thing, and I really want to tell everybody to, let go of it. That's what I really want to say. I'm usually a lot more diplomatic than that. But the issue isn't about how you're going to teach or what your style is going to be. The issue is that there is a child here who's a natural learner, and your role isn't to be his teacher. Your role is to help him develop his learning. And it's just as simple as that. You don't need to make this big deal about paying money to some company who thinks that they know how your child needs to learn. Every child learns in a different way. So the idea is to make your child the center of the process rather than making your child operate around a process that's at the center.
A county contact is available by phone or by email to people who are looking for homeschooling information. So on any given morning, I'll open my email and there'll be an email in there from someone who wants to know any number of things. If it's legal to homeschool, first of all, where support groups are, people that they can connect with, what are their homeschooling options in the county that we live in. And we just answer as many questions as we can. I have a little form letter that I've made up that I email out to people, and then we just open up dialogue. And it's more like being a friend and holding their hand and showing them what the options are and walking them through the first steps. It's really exciting and rewarding to do.
I've worked with kids for a long time, and then something really magical happened to me. I had one of my own. And I think back to some things that I've read, and I was really struck by something where there's a man who'd done a lot of research on schooling. And what I heard him say shook me really hard. Because what he said that every major decision, I'm not talking about No Child Left Behind, or left behind, that in his opinion wouldn't consider major. I'm talking major meaning, let's institute compulsory schooling. Every major decision that has affected the compulsory schooling system were made by childless men. Every major decision, there's only been about 4 or 5 in the whole history of compulsory schooling, maybe less. Every major decision made in compulsory schooling was made by childless men. That rocked me pretty hard.
I wouldn't recommend homeschooling for everyone just across the board, because it really is a family by family thing, I think. It does not work for everyone. It worked really well for me, but I wouldn't say to just blindly do it. It's a big choice to do.
I've been teaching college-level economics and statistics for the past 33 years, And I've taught at major universities, including USC, Pepperdine University, and also community colleges. And I have been continually at a community college for the last 22 years. I have seen hundreds, if not thousands, of college freshmen and sophomores. So I have a very good idea of what high school graduates are like, what the diversity is there, and what they know. And the number one characteristic that they have is that they are burned out. They are resistant or apathetic. They sometimes are actively resistant to learning. They're uncomfortable with the whole process. They resist in every possible way they can think of while still being there. Most of them don't really want to be there. They are not interested in learning. They're only interested in graduating. And a lot of them are also very apathetic. They're waiting for someone to just lead them along and say, read this chapter, answer these questions, now you've got credit, now we'll move you to the next class. The homeschoolers that I have had, and I have had half a dozen or so in the past decade, are the absolute opposite of that. They are extremely enthusiastic, very excited to be there, far more interested in the learning than they are in the grade. I heard one telling other students around him, if you just pay more attention to what you're learning, the grade will take care of itself. So they're very, very different. And that difference I've thought a lot about, and I've thought about what is it that homeschoolers are doing. And I think that a lot of that difference is that we're just not harming them, because this is a very natural kind of way for humans to be. Some of us get through 13 years of public education and college and still have the embers of that love of learning, that curiosity, that bright-eyed interest in things. Some of us still have those embers, and we can fan them back into flames as adults. And that's, I think, what people mean by when they get out of school, then they get to find themselves. Many, if not most, kids do not survive that process with those embers still there and never discover them again and live a very different kind of life than those of us who are excited about living and learning do. And so I thought a lot about how to keep that alive in my kids, and really the conclusion I came to was that it's easy to just extinguish it. It's not that hard to keep it alive if you just don't do harm. So I took up the motto of do no harm. And so when I didn't know what to do, I just tried to have fun and tried to bring more joy into our lives. So I didn't know when we started how my kids were going to learn math, because to try to sit them down and make them learn math was not joyful. I didn't want to do the same thing the schools had been doing, which has created a massive epidemic of math phobia among adults in the country. But I didn't know what the alternatives were. I didn't know what would do them, better than doing the conventional methods. And so we did literally nothing except have fun and play a lot of games and talk a lot and have a really good time. And I just trusted that in the end, if they needed to learn math, that it would either have been absorbed somehow by osmosis, or they would decide at some point, hey, I need to learn this, and I will. Turns out I was right, and I'm very happy to say that all three of my kids have either graduated from college or are in college now and have learned math very easily when they got to the point at usually about 17 years old. I think for all three of them, actually, it was at 17 that they decided formal math seemed like a good idea of something they wanted to know. And they took some math classes and did very, very well, and they were fine. They are none of them in fields where they really have to use a lot of higher math, but if they needed to, they would not be afraid of it. They would be okay with doing it. And that's all I wanted. I was just happy that they didn't have math anxiety and math phobia as they got into college age. If they need to tackle it, they're going to be happy to, fine to do that. As far as other subject areas that cause children to be unhappy and miserable, sitting down, making them do their homework and things like that, again, I just chose not to do anything that seemed to lead to more disharmony or more difficulty, and I put our relationship first in every case. Whenever the issue came up, I just said, what's going to help us have a better relationship? And so my advice now to new homeschoolers or people whose kids are having trouble in school is to not worry about the academics, but worry a lot about what kind of life you're living. And that's what kind of life they will grow up expecting to live. We want them to grow up with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of interest, a lot of gusto, a lot of moxie, a lot of confidence in themselves, the ability to decide what they want to do, to pursue their passions. Then we have to live that way all along. And sitting at the table doing workbooks with the kids unhappy, that's not the way we want them to live in the future, so it's better not to live that way now.
You just can't rhyme if you got no reason. Waiting on love, guess it's not the season yet. And let go of your inhibition and talk to me, I'll be listening. But don't let your words